Hi, in this video we are going to talk about fixing some flaws in Photoshop. So here I have my document open that I supplied for you in Classroom. It has 5 different pictures all together. So we are going to start on this top picture and move our way down using different tools to fix these flaws. So first I need to zoom in, so I'm going to hit Control plus on my keyboard. So I'll hit it a couple of times to zoom in. Now I'm in pretty close, and I am going to hit and hold the space bar till I get that little hand tool, click and drag with my mouse. I've got a little bit of delay here with my little lag on my computer today, but we'll make it work. So I'm gonna just move around my image that way. You can also, of course, always use these scroll bars on the right side and the bottom of your screen, or yours might be in a different location, but you can use your scroll bars if you want to. Let me show you one other way to do this. So if you go to Window and Navigator, here mine's popping up. That red area is showing me what's visible on my screen. So right now that part is this little red, whatever's in this red box corresponds with what's on my screen. So if I wanted to, I could click and pull that down. I could scroll all the way to the bottom of my image, or whatever I need to do. Okay, but anyway, here we go. So now I have this first image filling my screen. What we are going to do for this first one is choose the lasso tool. So your tools should look similar to the way mine do. They might be in 2 different rows, but if you're seeing that you are not finding all of the tools that I'm referring to, make sure you have checked that you have chosen the correct workspace. So mine is set to Essentials. That's what yours should be set to too. I can access that information on the right hand side of my window here and click on Essentials, or I could go to Window, Workspace, and Essentials. Sometimes those get changed, and for some reason you might have like 3D selected. If that's the case, then your tools will definitely look different from what we need them to look like. So that's always a good place to start if you're finding that you're not seeing the tools that you need to see. Okay, but anyway, back to this photo. What we are going to do is we are going to remove this right group of people. We're going to leave the one on the left, but we're going to remove this group of people on the right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my lasso tool and make a selection around this group of people. Oops, I got a little rough there. Okay, so up in the options bar, when I have my lasso selected, to create a new selection, I choose this one on the far left. So it just looks like one square filled in. If I wanted to add to my selection, so right now I missed a little bit of this on the right side of this person here, or my right side of that person. So I want to add to my selection a little bit. So I'm going to click on that. This is the add to selection option. And you see a little plus sign next to my lasso. So I'm just going to add to my selection by drawing around an area, and it increases the selection by that area that I just added. If I wanted to decrease my selection or remove from selection, like if I didn't like that I had all of this selected, whoops, I feel like my mouse is a little wacky today, but I removed part of the selection there. So that's just the remove from selection, and that works for all of your selection tools. So you should have those options up there with all of your selection tools. So there we go. I have them all selected. Now I'm just going to go to Edit, Fill. So now in this little dialog box that pops up, I want the contents to be content aware, and that's what should pop up, but just be aware that it might not, so make sure that's there. Color adaptation, you can either check that or not for this one. This one, it's not a big deal. So I'll check that. I'll keep the mode as normal, opacity 100%, and I'll hit OK. And if we give it a second, there we go. Those people are gone. Photoshop does a decent job of filling in what it thinks should be there. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to hit Control D to deselect that area. If you want to, you can go through that process a couple of times, and it might refine the selection and make it a little bit more accurate. So you can do the same thing. So even though those people are already gone, I'm just going to build on what I already started. So Edit, Fill, Content Aware, everything the same, and hit OK. And then that changes that selection. So you can do that a few times if you want to just sort of edit the selection a little bit. So I'm going to hit Control D to deselect. So that's exactly what I wanted for that picture. This one on the top, I got that little group removed. It's a little bit blurry in some areas, but again, if I wanted to spend the time, I could fix all those doing the same process as what I just did. But I'm good with this. Okay, so as long as all these people are gone, then you're good. Let's move on. So I'm going to hold down the space bar till I get the hand key, click and drag with my mouse up, and then I now have this other image visible in my screen. Again, you could use the navigator, or you could scroll using your scroll bars. Okay, so now I am on this image and I have that vapor trail that was left from airplane or whatever the case may be. So what I'm going to use now is I'm going to use the content aware move tool. So let's see, in my toolbar, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 from the top, I'm going to click on that and hold it down till I get the content aware move tool. And that should look like 2 crossed curvy arrows. So there, I want that one chosen. And up in my options bar, I want to have the mode as move. I'm going to enter structure, I'll leave at 5. Color, I will go to 7. So the higher structure value maintains more of the copied edge pixels. So it maintains more of what was originally there. A higher color value provides more color blending. So just so you are aware a little bit of how those things work. I wouldn't worry about them too much for right now. And you can experiment with them a little bit, but you don't have to for this one. So all I'm going to do now using my content aware move tool is I'm going to create a selection to the side of this vapor trail. And now that I have that selection made, I want my selection to be bigger than what I'm covering up. So I want to fix this little vapor trail. My selection is much bigger than that vapor trail. Now all I'm going to do when I have that selection created, and I can tell that I have a selection because I see those little marching ants, and that's what it looks like. That's what we call that. It changes from black and white, but it looks like it's moving. We call those marching ants. Okay, so that's my selection. I'm going to click and drag that over. And again, my computer's got a little lag going on today. So I'll click and drag it till it's covering that vapor trail. I'm good with that. I'll release my mouse. I'll hit the check mark. I could resize it if I wanted to, but I don't think I need to for this one. And let's see how that turns out. And sometimes it works pretty well right away, and sometimes you have to give it a couple of tries, just the way we did that first one. Okay, I am happy with that. So I'm going to hit Control D to deselect that. Sometimes I've done this project or this little activity a couple of times, and sometimes it doesn't cover up part of the vapor trail. So if that's the case, just go ahead and select it again and do the same exact process with the part that's not covered up when you go through this process. Okay, so that is the content aware move tool using the move mode. This picture is good. Now let's move on down, and we're going to use the content aware move tool again, but we're going to use, instead of the move mode, we're going to go to the extend mode. So again, same tool here, so content aware move tool, going to extend mode, and we're going to keep structure at 5, and we'll bump this up a little bit, we'll go 8. So the idea with bumping that up a little bit is to ensure that the foliage is well blended into the existing foliage. Again, that might be a little bit of trial and error. So go ahead, give it a shot and see what happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select one of these little sections of this plant. So I'll do a decent job. I don't need to be super precise. Okay, so now that I have it selected, all I'm going to do is click and drag over. And there we go. Now I sort of grew a new section to that plant. So if I want to leave that like that, I can, that's fine, or I can rotate it around a little bit if I need to, whatever looks most natural. So I have that there, I'm happy with that. I'll hit the check mark, and we'll see what Photoshop does to it. It should make it look pretty well blended into the environment. I'm pretty happy with that. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to fill in some of these other areas. So I could take that exact same portion of the plant, move it up here, rotate it around. I'm just clicking and dragging. I don't have to do anything else for this one. Move it around, hit the check mark. Okay, I'm going to do that same thing a couple more times. I'll fill in a bunch of this area. I'll rotate it so that it looks a little bit more natural. Okay, so you can just keep filling in with that same exact selection that we've made. Or you could create a new selection. So if I hit Control D to deselect, and then I select a new section of this plant and paste that in some different areas, then I'll get a little bit more variety and it might look a little bit more natural. So go ahead and make that plant grow a little bit. I will leave mine about like that. But if I wanted to, I'm going to hit Control D to deselect. If I wanted to, I could fill in all of this rocky area with that plant. And as you can see, some of these look pretty natural, like these over here look decently natural. These two, or these three actually, don't look natural. So what I would need to do then is I'd probably paste in another little section of that plant over the top of these edges. But if you can see, probably the way to get around that problem would be to make a more accurate selection. That would be one way. You could also play with the sliders on here. So it works pretty well, but it takes a little trial and error sometimes. But anyway, I made my plant grow and I'm happy with that one. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next one. Okay, so moving down to my next picture. In this picture, I have this sign and I like the picture, but I want to eliminate this little wire here. So to do that, we are going to go to the spot healing brush. So in my tools, I'm going to select my spot healing brush, and you can adjust the size of your brush. So you want it to cover that wire, but not be too big. So I'm going to make mine maybe a little bit bigger. Mine's 35 right now, so I can either go up to my options bar. Great, I'm going to increase the size of this, so I could do that way. I could also do that on my keyboard. So if I hit the left bracket key on my keyboard, I decrease the size of it. Whoops, I need to get out of here. Okay, so if I hit the left bracket key on my keyboard, my brush should reduce in size. There we go. That lag there is making things difficult. So the left bracket key on my keyboard reduces it in size. Right bracket key increases the brush in size. So now I'm just going to go ahead and brush over this wire. And as you could see, I didn't have to be very accurate on this main sky part, but when it's closer to the sign, I'm going to be a little bit more accurate and kind of stamp it in. Again, same thing over here, stamp it in right next to the sign. I'm good over here, so I can get a little wacky and fill that in. So again, be a little more accurate right next to the building, but that's pretty good. There we go. So now while I'm at it, I'll eliminate whatever this is on top of this light post. Maybe that's a bird, I'm not sure. I'm going to click once and that guy's gone. I could do the same thing down here. So I'm going to get rid of this wire. It's not as noticeable as the first one, but what the heck, since I'm taking stuff out, I may as well fix that one too. And sometimes these work pretty well, and other times you go through and use your tool and it doesn't work super well, and then you realize you need to go ahead and choose a different tool. And that's perfectly fine. That's part of the process. Okay, so that was our spot healing brush. Okay, so that one looks pretty good. Whoops, I got a little crazy. I'm going to undo that. Control Z to undo. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and move down to my last picture. Okay, so for this one, what we are going to do is we are going to use the patch tool. So in the same spot, I'm going to click and hold, get to the patch tool, and now I want just this first option selected, so I'm just going to create a new selection. I'm going to click and drag, creating a selection around this little slug, and then I can drag that around until I find an area that is pretty similar to the area I'm trying to fill in. And that's pretty decent. Oops, I clicked and dragged again, and I'm going to undo that. So Command or Control Z to undo and Control D now to deselect. So nothing is selected, that little slug is gone, and there we go. Okay, so now I have fixed all of these flaws in this photo. I'm going to Control - to zoom out, and we'll be able to see all of our fixed photos. So group of people is gone, the streak in the sky is gone, my foliage grew here, I removed that wire, and I removed that little yellow slug from this picture. Perfect. Now I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to save this as my first name, last name, fixed flaws. So mine is already saved that way. So first name, last name, fixed flaws.jpg. Save that as a JPEG and go ahead and upload it to Classroom.